The 4th of January, 2026. Craven Cottage, 57th minute. Florian Wirtz scores for Liverpool and then stands completely still. I was sure it was offside, so I didn't even celebrate. Flag up. VAR overturned it. The goal stood. The league logs VAR errors, not this time. 11 days later, its own review panel backed the call, unanimously naming the reason: the thicker offside lines drawn for the tightest calls. Those lines carry a number applied to the closest calls the league checks and never published. About 5 centimeters. 5 centimeters of deliberate slack inside a system that measures to the pixel. The man who announced it said what it was worth: 20 goals handed back to the game. That is the confession. Where does a number like that come from, and what happened when the league bought the machine meant to replace it? Fulham did not accept it. Their manager, Marco Silva, wanted an explanation. One sentence of his is why this video exists. The semi-automatic. We have to believe in it. They have to be 100% sure of it. 100% sure. Hold that thought. The video assistant referee that night was Andy Madley, working on semi-automated offside technology. The panel's verdict did not stop at supporting the officials. It named the reason. The VAR intervention to award the goal was supported as correct given the tight margin of the offside call and thicker offside lines used for these incredibly tight calls. Read that again. The reason given was not that Wirtz was onside. It counted because the lines were thick. A policy working exactly as described. To understand it, go back to the season football spent arguing about an armpit. 2019. The Premier League's first season with VAR, and the technology is supposed to end the guessing. What it delivers is a run of goals erased by body parts. Roberto Firmino's armpit in November, and that is the Premier League's own word from its own account, aligned to his armpit. John Lundstrom's toe a week later. That season is the reason 5 centimeters exists. A year of a sport looking at its own measuring instrument and not believing it. And by February, it had produced the image we took apart in the first episode of this channel. Raheem Sterling, offside by 2.4 centimeters. One sentence is enough. The distance that erased the goal was smaller than the uncertainty we measured on it. The question is what you do about that. Football's lawmakers had already answered. The laws of the game are not written by the Premier League. They are written by a body called the IFAB. And in January 2020, with the armpit argument at full volume, the IFAB's own secretary answered the margin question directly. Lukas Brud's answer was one line long. Even if it is only a centimeter, offside is offside. And in the same remarks, he ruled out, explicitly, any tolerance limit, any margin of error applied to offside at all. So the law is binary. In the rulebook, the offside line has no width at all. 19 months later, the Premier League gave it one. August 2021. The change is procedural, announced by PGMOL. The league's own website describes it in a sentence. After the 1 pixel lines go on, the VAR adds the thicker broadcast lines, and where they overlap, those situations will now be deemed as onside. They drew the lines fatter and called anything inside the fat onside. The head of the referee's body, Mike Riley, described it in plain English. We have effectively reintroduced the benefit of the doubt to the attacking player. And we ended our first episode on that sentence because it says out loud that the measurement has a margin. But that is where we stopped. Riley said something else that August. What we give back to the game is 20 goals that we would have disallowed last season by using quite forensic scrutiny. Not a newspaper's estimate. The referee's chief counting his own decisions and calling them too forensic to keep. He never said out of how many. Everything you have just heard is documented. The procedure is on the league's website. The quote is on the record. The number is not. That page describes the 1 pixel lines, the thicker lines on top, the overlap. It contains no figure. Not 5 centimeters, not any centimeters. The 5 centimeters comes from reporting. ESPN, Sports Illustrated, the same figure, repeated consistently, never confirmed. Around 5, approximately 5. That matters for a reason that has nothing to do with secrecy. You cannot argue with a figure you have not been given. Silva is disputing a threshold that has never been published against a measurement never officially released. There is nothing to check, which raises a harder question, and the season audits answer it. The tolerance was sold as the end of goals erased by toenails. Did it? In 2020 to 2021, the season before the change, VAR ruled out 32 Premier League goals for offside. In 2021 to 2022, the season of the change, with thicker lines running all year, 32. The same number twice. Be careful with it. These are overturn counts, and a season's total depends on how many marginal incidents occurred, not only where the line sits. But the tolerance did do something. Goals awarded after an incorrect offside call rose from 7 to 11. So the honest verdict is narrower than the headline. The tolerance changed which goals stood. It did not reduce how many were ruled out. And the number Riley never gave is still not a number. 32 is a count of VAR overturns. It is not his denominator. The figure that would tell you how big 20 really was has never been published, which leaves 5 centimeters doing something other than the job it was sold for. Then the league bought the machine that should have retired it. April 2025. Semi-automated offside technology goes live in the Premier League. The specification is extraordinary. The old system, 5 calibrated cameras, broadcast footage at 50 frames a second, a human placing a line by hand. The new one, up to 30 cameras in stadium roofs, several of them running at 100 frames a second. 3 sources of vagueness in the old system: the cameras, the frame rate, the human hand on the line, attacked directly. The Premier League kept the 5 centimeters. Not as an oversight, a stated decision on its own announcement page. No other competition using this class of technology applies a tolerance at all. The Champions League measures to the millimeter. So do the major European leagues. So why keep an allowance for uncertainty after buying the machine meant to remove it? Answer that before we do. 2 answers. The first, a tolerance does not remove a boundary, it moves it. The old argument was a player 2 centimeters offside. The new one is a player 5.1 centimeters offside. The second, and this is the one that matters, the 5 centimeters never measured anything. It sits on top of the system's own margin, and the 2 stack. One analysis of the Wirtz decision, Yahoo Sports, put it plainly. The system's own margin for error, combined with the 5 centimeter tolerance, means the worst case scenario is now a 10 centimeter error rather than a 5 centimeter error. They did not replace the error bar. They drew a second one around it, which is the answer to Marco Silva. He asked for 100% certainty. That is the one thing a system that carries a tolerance at all cannot offer. The method is declared. The number never has been. The doubt has been measured, given a width, and handed to the attacker. Here is what 5 centimeters is worth in frames. A player sprinting at 8 meters per second covers 8 centimeters between 2 frames of 100 frames a second camera. 8 centimeters. The whole tolerance, the thing that decided a goal at Craven Cottage, is smaller than 1 frame of a sprinting attacker's movement. The margin was smaller than the error bar, so they made the margin bigger. The error bar never moved. Back to Wirtz, and the choice before the choice. The video assistant referee was offered 3 candidate frames of Connor Bradley's touch. Pick the one the law requires before we say it. The frame analyzed was reportedly 1 frame ahead of the television pictures, which is why the stills and the official decision disagreed. Law 11 judges offside at the first point of contact, not the moment the ball leaves the foot. The VAR takes the first frame showing contact in the act of playing. Two choices, stacked. Which frame, then which line. Both were made under the rules as written. The panel supported the decision. Correct, and still not the same answer everywhere. The same ball, the same frame, the same players, a goal in the Premier League, not a goal in the Champions League. One applies 5 centimeters, the other applies none, which is why nobody cheated. Andy Madley applied the rules he was given correctly. Mike Riley hid nothing. In 2021, he said what he had done. Fulham's complaint is not with an official, but with a rule, and it is a reasonable one. That Yahoo analysis noticed something else. The graphics are drawn at an angle not square to the line, which hides the tolerance from the viewer. We rendered both. Same band. Visible in one. Silva said the margin looked like much more than 5 centimeters. He may be right. Nobody can check. The tolerance is an admission. Our measurement has a margin. Every competition still measuring to the millimeter is still pretending it doesn't. The Premier League stopped, and it still has not written the number down. After 5 years and 2 systems, the figure that decides the Premier League's tightest offside calls exists only in reporting. A tolerance you can only learn about from journalists is not a rule. It is a rumor that happens to be true. The margin was smaller than the error bar, so they made the margin bigger. The error bar never moved. Next time, the only case in this series where the word is not error, where a court and a federation used corruption and titles came off a wall, Calciopoli. For the comments. If a league runs a tolerance, what should the number be? And who should publish it?